This is CBC Nova Scotia News.
Policing review. Nova Scotia promises to make changes to policing across the province to improve public safety.
Strategy dropped. The province abandons a plan to help improve access to local, healthy food.
And hitting the right note. Cape Breton music students get a boost from 2 California church choirs.
Clear skies overnight and a cool start to Thursday. Temperatures warming, the clouds increasing. Your full forecast is coming up.
Nova Scotia is committing to an overhaul of policing across the province and expanding the role of the RCMP. They will bring in 6 major changes in response to a new review.
The Justice Minister says this will make sure all Nova Scotians have excellent police services no matter where they live. The CBC's Ryan has more.
Nova Scotia is bringing in multiple changes to modernize policing and better protect the public. A new Deloitte review found that services are uneven across the province, and municipalities are struggling to pay for the officers they need.
Nova Scotians told us that the current model of policing is not working.
The report suggests expanding the RCMP's role as provincial police and ensuring there are proper staffing levels in every community. There are also higher police standards the province brought in last year, and more will be added. Municipalities with their own forces that cannot meet those standards will have choices to make. Switch to the RCMP or start paying the Mounties for services like divers or emergency response teams.
If they don't have all those services but want to maintain a municipal agency, then they must contract with the RCMP to provide those services at a cost.
The review was recommended by the Mass Casualty Commission, which was highly critical of the RCMP response to the mass shooting 5 years ago. But Druin says the RCMP has invested in improvements and learned many lessons from the tragedy.
We have trust that this is the right path for Nova Scotians and will deliver consistent, high-quality policing to Nova Scotians regardless of where they live.
For municipalities with the RCMP now, the billing will change from paying by officer to need based on population and geography.
Because we're billing per officer, it's very rigid. 6 here, 7 here. And so billing per service through a new mechanism will ensure that we have some flexibility.
The province will also broaden public safety in Nova Scotia by including more civilian-led options like bylaw officers. They will also create a single records system for all police agencies. The province will be doing audits on which police agencies can meet the standards starting this fall. Nova Scotia paid $190 million last year on policing. The Justice Minister could not say how much more will be coming, but that number will go up.
This transformation is going to require investment, and we're committed to doing that.
The RCMP says it's pleased with the direction the province is taking and believes the changes will strengthen public safety. Ryan, CBC News, Halifax.
A sudden death at a tent encampment in Dartmouth last year has been ruled a homicide. In December, police responded to Geary Street where a man had been assaulted by a woman. Police said the man declined medical attention and further police investigation. A few days later, the same man was found dead in a tent. He was identified as 56-year-old Jeffrey Alexander Emerson. Last week, the Nova Scotia Medical Examiner Service ruled the death to be a homicide. Police are now looking for the woman involved in the assault.
Nova Scotia Power is offering 5 years of free credit monitoring to all of its current and former customers in response to a cyber attack earlier this year. The utility says its ongoing investigation has revealed that information belonging to former customers was also accessed in the breach. NSP says it's still figuring out what information was taken, but it could include names, credit histories, driver's license numbers, and social insurance numbers. Customers can sign up for the credit monitoring online.
Nova Scotia has signed an agreement with a medical school in Lebanon to recruit family doctors. The province will pay for the physicians' residency training in Lebanon, as well as their licensing exams and the cost of immigrating to Canada. Premier Tim Houston made the announcement today. Each year for 5 years, 2 doctors will move to Nova Scotia, and they'll be expected to stay and practice for at least 3 years. The province plans to spend $5 million over the agreement. Houston gave credit for the new program to Wadia Ferris. Ferris is the honorary consul of Lebanon in Halifax and a major real estate developer.
In Halifax here, we have, look around the city. I mean, the Lebanese community built a lot of the city. Where would the city be without our Lebanese community? So now we turn again to that strong friendship and relationship and those traditions and look for help as we fix our healthcare system and build up our healthcare system.
The province is working on a similar deal with a second university in Lebanon.
Concerns are being raised by people who study or work in Nova Scotia's food and agriculture sector. That's after the provincial government's decision to not move forward with a food and beverage strategy. The strategy was aimed at increasing access to and production of healthy local food. Andrew Lamb reports.
Earlier this month, it was revealed that the province had quietly abandoned its plan to develop a local food strategy. It was supposed to help increase production of and access to healthy local food. Now, there are some raising concerns about the shelved initiative.
Nova Scotia has some of the highest rates of food insecurity in the country, and our farmers are struggling as well. So it is a bit of a missed opportunity, like I said, that we're not seeing that going forward.
A round of public consultation for the strategy was done in 2022. Nova Scotia's agriculture minister said the government is acting and does not need a strategy to do the right thing.
A lot of the things that came from the feedback that we received we're already doing. We introduced a school lunch program. Institutional procurement was part of that.
Stevens also says Nova Scotia lacks infrastructure for local food production. Improving that, as the strategy was intended to do, could help us reduce the risk from shocks to supply chains and markets.
We're very much focused on exports at the moment, so that leaves us really vulnerable to fluctuations on the world market, commodity price fluctuations, input price fluctuations.
Nova Scotia's farming industry has not been profitable for nearly a decade now, according to recent StatsCan data. There's also fewer farm workers and farms. The head of an organization aiming to help producers distribute their food to local consumers more easily says the dropped strategy leaves farmers in the lurch.
It could increase access to markets. It could help us increase our local production. That's something we really need to increase with farms declining.
Minister Moreau said the province is supporting food hubs like the one Milton represents and that the government is removing interprovincial trade barriers. Andrew Lamb, CBC News, Halifax.
Ryan Snoddon with us now, and we're starting to see some relief from the humidity.
But the heat is still sticking around.
Yeah, it was another very, very hot day across the province. And I want to start with this in Yarmouth. And the town of Yarmouth, the weather station has been there for 150 years. So a large amount of data there. Today is just the 6th time that Yarmouth has hit 30 degrees. 6th time in 150 years, so very, very rare. But indeed, the high there officially 30 in Yarmouth, 32 in Shelburne, 32, 33 in and around that area in Shelburne, Sandy Point, and that was the hottest spot in Canada today. So 32 in Halifax, just shy of a record. Thankfully, yes, the humidity has been dropping. Look at those dew points; they've really dropped off, and that means a welcome relief for sleeping tonight, Tom and Amy. And you know what? It might even be a little bit cool to start tomorrow, but back to 20 into the afternoon. Break down your full forecast coming up.
All right. Do appreciate it. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Well, work is underway in Fairview to redesign one of that community's main roads. Dutch Village Road hasn't been upgraded in decades. When the project is completed, the actual street space will be squeezed to make room for extra features. Preston Mulligan reports.
The rapid growth happening in Halifax is perhaps most obvious right here along Dutch Village Road. Some local landmarks now surrounded by new development. This local councillor here says the $10 million road project is long overdue.
It has to be done, but I understand it's difficult for people.
No pain, no gain, Morse says. In the meantime, locals are doing their best to adjust.
Well worth waiting for. Well worth it. Just look at it. It's going to be nice.
Very difficult to get around. I have to get my daughter to school every morning and just trying to figure out which road to take. Some days I come out, the sidewalks aren't even there. So it's just challenging to get to and from and to know what I have to do to get around.
One of the more challenging parts of this job here on the west side of Dutch Village Road is adding a new sidewalk, but not just a sidewalk, but also parallel parking and a bike lane. Not to mention the streetscaping, shorter crosswalks, and new bus stop pads. To make room for all of it, the actual car lanes will end up a little more narrow, and buildings like this one will lose 1 meter of frontage.
HRM has acquired a few parcels of land to help with the adding of features.
The city approached the property owner here about a small land swap.
So obviously I and my wife analyzed the issue, and we definitely wanted to contribute the betterment of the community and the space as well. So we decided to sacrifice the front section. We gave the city 1 meter along the front of the street.
In exchange, the city will give Menendez an extra meter here on the Rosedale Avenue side of his property.
It was a decision motivated by our support to community and the urban development of the area as well.
Work on this piece of urban development began in April and won't be finished until sometime in 2026. Preston Mulligan, CBC News, Halifax.
Blue-green algae sightings have often closed Halifax beaches, but new data from researchers at Dalhousie University shows these algae blooms had little risk to people. The report monitored various supervised beaches over the past 3 years, including on Banook and Penhorn Lakes. Any toxins detected were far below Health Canada's standard for safe drinking water, let alone recreation. Elizabeth Montgomery is a water resources specialist for Halifax and says the data is good news, but the city hasn't changed its closure policies yet.
We want to be sure that we're still making decisions that are not going to put people at risk, and that's why we've taken this kind of, I guess, conservative approach to the beaches. Is right now we're operating out of an abundance of precaution because we don't want to put people at risk.
The lake water was safe, but a different type of algae that forms on the bottom of lakes can be fatal to animals.
With the ferry service between Nova Scotia and Prince Edward Island once again plagued by cancellations, Transport Canada says it is moving up dredging Wood Island's harbour to this summer. Northumberland Ferries said this week that it would be operating on reduced sailings and limited vehicle capacity this week due to, quote, unusually low tides. Dredging of the harbour was originally going to take place this fall. The area was last dredged was 2022.
Well, a cruise ship visiting Sydney came with more than just passengers on board this week.
2 church choirs from California arrived in port to make a donation to help Cape Breton students studying music. Kyle Moore reports.
Home in Nova Scotia.
Passengers on the Zuiderdam were treated to some Cape Breton music at the port in Sydney. Among those in attendance, members from 2 California church choirs who made a $1,000 donation to the local Center for Education to help support music education and repair musical instruments.
We are 2 choirs from the churches of Solana Beach Presbyterian and La Jolla Presbyterian. So naturally, I think it can be assumed that each of us are very passionate specifically about music. But along with that, I think music does so much, first of all, to develop individual expression and emotional development, and it builds community.
The 2 choirs put on a concert in California to raise the funds. Burgett says the money is meant to spread hope and demonstrate how people can come together.
As governmental tensions arose between our 2 nations, it really became a beautiful opportunity for us to act as ambassadors of friendship and community and togetherness.
Mark Bott is president of the Cape Breton Tour Company and part of bringing everyone together. He says music teachers welcome the donation.
As a lot of teachers or music teachers will tell you, repairing instruments is expensive and difficult sometimes. So any resources that can be raised to do that is going to be beneficial.
Bott says it's also an example of Americans rising above all that's going on politically.
I think it's an example of all of us rising above what's going on. I mean, when governments get into disagreements, there's right and wrong on both sides of it. Obviously, we have our opinions on things like that, but at the end of the day, it's people coming together that makes the world a better place and not a worse one.
The 2 choirs will make another donation at their next stop in Charlottetown. Kyle Moore, CBC News, Sydney.
What a spot to be today, White
Wouldn't you
Point
like
Beach.
to be there? Yeah, beautiful.
Brian's got the forecast coming up after this break.
The weather update is brought to you by Tourisme Gaspésie. Plan your stay in Gaspésie at tourismegaspésie.com and enjoy extraordinary moments.
All right, who had trouble sleeping last night? It was humid for sure.
It sounds like it's going to be better tonight, though.
Yeah, absolutely. The dew points have been dropping quickly, and if you leave the windows open tonight, you may even need a little blanket on the bed. It's
what a switch.
Yeah, what a switch indeed. It's going to be a cooler, more tolerable sleep. Still warm for tomorrow, but yeah, a big difference. And you can see the heat was still on today. In case you missed it earlier, Yarmouth, it says 29 on the board there, but the weather station indeed did crack 30 today for just the 6th time on record in 154 years of data there.
Quite a record.
Yeah.
It's worth noting.
Every 25 years, basically. And Shelburne was indeed 32.8. That was our hottest spot in the country today. And obviously a new record there as well in a June record in Yarmouth and a new record in Shelburne. Halifax just shy of a record today, 32, not quite to where the previous record was, just by a couple of degrees, 0.1 of a degree, I should say. You can see beautiful evening for a stroll on the beach, White Point. Yes, terrific day to be along the coast, and yeah, lucky folks there. Nice sea breezes there, 23 at Western Head in that area. Back Row's at 22. Yarmouth has cooled down to 27. It's still 30 in Shelburne, and it's still 30 in Halifax. 19 in Sydney, 18 in Ingonish Beach, 16 in Cheticamp. That's our coolest spot with those winds. So what a difference across the province right now. Winds are up, gusting upwards of 30 to 40. Note the humidex has really dropped off, so it's 30 in Shelburne, but feeling 35, 32 in Halifax, 30 in Halifax rather, feeling 32, and this is why. The dew points have really dropped off and are continuing to fall. We're all going to be in the range where Cape Breton is by the time we get to tomorrow morning. So it's really, really going to be nice and tolerable out there. High pressure moving into the region, northerly winds around this low and around this high. That is driving in that milder air and drier air rather. And as we look off to the west, we've got that next system that is moving into the Great Lakes. That is going to be the system that we're going to be keeping an eye on for the weekend. And as we look at the current temperatures, still 29 in Toronto, 27 in Ottawa, 29 in Montreal. But you can see the dew points have started to drop off there as well. And this drier air is going to be in place right through into the weekend. So overnight lows tonight are generally going to be in that 10 to 14 range for most. We could get into some single digits though. In through low-lying areas, especially across the east and northeast. We'll see temperatures 13, 14 degrees in through the west. And as we walk you through the forecast tonight, there's, well, not a whole lot to show you in terms of those clouds. It's going to be fairly clear. And I do think it's going to be clear to start the day tomorrow as well. Mostly sunny start, some fog patches dissipating. And then we're looking at that cloud to really thicken up into the afternoon, becoming mainly cloudy across the mainland. You folks in Cape Breton will likely hang on to at least a mix of sun and cloud, and so a bit brighter there. Temperatures 15 to 19 degrees across the island for tomorrow. We'll see temperatures in the 20 degree range through Antigonish, 23 Sheet Harbour, back into Sheet Harbour rather, and Musquodoboit Harbour near 20, Halifax near 22, Truro near 23 tomorrow, Tatamagouche, Amherst likely into the high teens tomorrow, but a beautiful day nonetheless. Bridgewater near 25 tomorrow, and we will see Shelburne, a big difference, and Yarmouth as well. We'll see temperatures in the high teens, low 20s, depending on your proximity to the coast. Friday, we'll see increasing clouds, and this is the system that we're going to be watching. Here it is, approaching for the weekend, and this is, again, another one of these systems that's crawling just to our southwest, high pressure anchored off to the north, and it does look like it will build the clouds in throughout Saturday. Shower chances are going to be greatest in through the south and west as that system does start to approach. Differences, though, on how much it is going to be creeping in. As you can see here, temperatures are likely to top out into the high teens. That system pulls away through Sunday, and we are going to be looking at Monday. Quieter day. Fingers crossed for Canada today. Looks like kind of late day into Wednesday with the best chance for showers there.
Okay.
We hope so.
Okay.
Thanks so much, Ryan.
Thank you.
Millions of Canadians are dealing with intense heat and humidity. Those conditions can be dangerous, at times even deadly.
Combine that with wildfire smoke in the air and the risks get even higher. Shane O'Luck on a new study that connects the two and explains what you can do to stay safe.
They smelled it before they saw it.
It's not the most common way that fires are discovered.
A brief evacuation after Provincial staff went on patrol just east of Halifax and followed their noses to a small wildfire. This time, a helpful early warning sign. But with wildfire smoke across parts of Western Canada and rising temperatures and heat alerts in the east, new research is warning of the increased risk to health when heat and smoke hit at the same time.
Your body's just got a lot going on, so it's not surprising that when we combine those two exposures, they're riskier than either exposure alone.
The study looked at 21,000 deaths in the Vancouver area over more than a decade. Heat is the bigger danger. But layer on smoke, and the study found the risk of dying goes up 8%. That's compared with days that are neither hot nor smoky. People with pre-existing health conditions are most at risk. But a McMaster University respirologist says more research could be required to find out why.
Why does, heat potentially make smoke inhalation worse or, have more health effects? That's where we can then really get into giving very specific advice and changing practice.
Researchers do know kids, seniors, and pregnant women are at risk. So are those who can't take shelter at all.
It very much does bother me because I have asthma.
An extra danger for those living on the street.
The heat is really illuminating these cracks in our system, these real gaps that people have challenges that will go well before and beyond the heat waves that are playing out across the country.
When it comes to dealing with hot, smoky weather, experts say make sure you have a place with cool, clean indoor air, even if it's just one room in your home. And if you don't have access to that, try to keep cool while outside. Shayna Luck, CBC News, Halifax.
Coming up, the governor of Maine is touring Nova Scotia. We speak to Janet Mills about Canada-U.S. relations during the Trump presidency. Maine Governor Janet Mills is wrapping up a tour of Nova Scotia and New Brunswick. It's all in an effort to reverse or at least slow a steep decline in the number of tourists crossing the border to visit her state. And Governor Mills joins us now. So how much has the tension between the U.S. and Canada, we're talking about tariffs, we're talking about annexation, hurt your state?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I can't account for that rhetoric on behalf of our president. He doesn't speak for us when he says those things, and it's damaging to our efforts to collaborate, continue to collaborate. But let's not forget that we have a historic interdependence economically, family-wise, culturally, even the cuisine. And for instance, Nova Scotia and Maine share obviously coastal communities and challenges and assets and attributes that those offer. We share the fisheries, concerns about the right whale, the concerns about offshore wind and efforts to go down that path, energy issues. We export advanced manufacturing products and a lot of other things to Nova Scotia and the maritime provinces, and we import a great deal of our commodities from the Atlantic provinces. So we do not want that rhetoric to be hurting our exchange of materials and goods and research and information, which is critical as well.
But it is right now in terms of tourism.
It's had an impact on tourism, certainly for Northeast United States and perhaps elsewhere. Our tourism numbers from Canada, at least, are down. We had a successful Memorial Day weekend, travel-wise, from road trips. But yes, and using the CAT, it makes it so much easier to negotiate between Maine and Nova Scotia. It's an asset.
But I know you've heard from people in New Brunswick and Nova Scotia saying they don't feel safe going down. They've canceled their trips.
Yeah. That really hurts because I can understand why they have those deep-seated feelings, and there's been some anecdotes across the border. I mean, for it's a 4,000-mile-long border between the United States and Canada, and there are a few bad things happening. But let's face it, there are still tens of thousands of Canadian visitors and people coming across the border between Canada and Maine constantly. We have a 611-mile border between Maine and Quebec and New Brunswick, and we are like in the lap of Canada. Right here. We're unique in that respect. But
before you ask Canadians to take a leap of faith and come into the U.S., shouldn't state legislatures be pushing hard on the things like that are upsetting Canadians, like the tariffs, like the rhetoric around the 51st state? Isn't that the ball in your court first?
Let me just say the tariffs, which are not run by the state, they're authorized by Congress and the chief executive, and we are attacking the tariffs, which are, as the Wall Street Journal put them, nothing but a large tax heist. It's a tax on us, the American people, and our consumer goods prices are going up, not down, as he promised last year during the election season. And so we are opposing the blanket tariffs, and I don't think they're in sync with the authorization, the congressional authorization. So yes, we are lobbying our members of Congress, and they are also
having
lobbying.
Any success?
I think they are pushing for a rollback of tariffs on aluminum and steel, automobiles, trucks. They are pushing back on those. And I think we're pushing back in the courts as well. I predict we're going to be successful in the courts because I don't think what the president has done is consonant with the Constitution and the authorities that he has and does not have. But regardless, tourism is important to both of us, all of us. In the exchange of goods from fisheries and advanced manufacturing products to intelligence and research and information is critical to all of us.
But as governor, you don't have control over the border agents, what's happening at the border. So I guess you might be able to understand when you talk about the anecdotes that people have experienced, that they might be a little nervous or just a little angry.
Yeah, well, but listen, and I understand that anger. But it wasn't me who said those things, and it wasn't the people of Maine, let's be clear. And the people of Maine, when you stop coming to Maine, you're not hurting President Trump. You're not hurting our federal government. You're hurting the small businesses, many of whom their families have Canadian roots. My roots go back a couple hundred years in Pugwash, Nova Scotia. So, and Maura Healey's roots, Governor Healey from Massachusetts, her roots go back into Newfoundland. Many people in New England have Canadian roots. Those small family businesses, those are the ones, the mom and pop shops, the motels, the B&Bs, the souvenir shops, the restaurants, those are the ones that you're hurting by not coming to Maine. And that's not fair. It wasn't them who caused the tariffs. It wasn't those people, those families who use the dangerous rhetoric that our chief executive in Washington has been employing. And I will say that there are still tens of thousands of people coming across. We welcome them with open arms. They are coming across and being safe, staying safe. And much of the news about this is anecdotal. Maine is the safest state in the United States. We're the lowest violent crime rate of any state in the country. We're proud of that. And we welcome people. We've got signs up now at all 13 border crossings saying, Bienvenue Canadien, welcome Canadians, and signs in the shops all around Maine saying, please remember us. You're our friends, you're our family, and those interdependencies will endure forever.
Now, the Prime Minister, Mark Carney, has said that the long-standing, strong relationship between our two countries is over.
From a governmental point of view, he's drawing a line, and I hope that he succeeds in developing a relationship of a different sort with our president, and that he can cause our president to reverse his stand on tariffs. Again, they're nothing but a tax on American people. To me, he campaigned on the economy. The economy in Maine and the United States, the prices of bread, of cars and trucks has gone up. The cost of construction, we all need to be building new homes. The cost of that has gone up 10% in Maine alone because of his tariffs on steel and aluminum. So we're not for those things. They're hurting us, American people, as much as anybody.
But as for the relationship, do you think it's repairable?
I do think it's repairable. Look, this is one president for a certain term. And I think people with better knowledge and better minds, better mindsets, people he listens to, businesses he listens to, are starting to say, look, this has gone too far, and you got to back off. And I think he will listen to them. But also, the Congress of the United States is undergoing a change next year. I suspect it'll be changing a lot. And the Congress will be standing up and taking back its authority. They should take back their authority on tariffs and taxes and bring it back home, because it's been, and here's what's the problem. It's not the tariffs and the taxes or the rhetoric alone. It's the unpredictability, the instability that businesses, that our economy all need. Your economy needs as well. We need to keep sharing the intellectual property, the research and development, the ideas, whether it's marine sciences and underwater drones and submersibles and watching for right whales and all those kinds of things. And how do you take count of the whole lobster and make pharmaceuticals and cosmetics and whatnot? We're sharing that information. We need to keep, you can't put a tariff on ideas. You can't put a tariff on knowledge. We want to keep going down those roads and sharing everything we can with the good people of Nova Scotia and the Maritime provinces.
All right. Well, Governor Mills, thanks so much for your time. We appreciate it. Coming up, Donald Trump is contradicting intelligence reports that U.S. strikes set back Iran's nuclear program by only a few months.
And a NATO summit in the Netherlands ended with a historic new agreement between member nations. Countries, including Canada, are significantly increasing their defense budgets. Welcome back. Donald Trump is insisting that Iran's nuclear program was obliterated after the U.S. strikes on Saturday.
He's rejecting leaked intelligence reports that suggest the strikes only set back Tehran's program by weeks. Sam Sampson has the latest from Washington.
With the ceasefire between Israel and Iran holding, humanitarian crews get a moment to breathe and assess damage from days of strikes. Trump has repeatedly said his Saturday strikes obliterated 3 Iranian nuclear sites.
I said, Iran will not have nuclear. Well, we blew it up. It's blown up to kingdom come.
But there are major contradictions coming from several U.S. media outlets reporting on a leaked intelligence document. They're reporting that the U.S. attack did not destroy Iran's nuclear program, but rather set it back a few months, and that Iran moved enriched uranium before the strikes. Trump's staff denies the information.
We're doing a leak investigation with the FBI right now because this information is for internal purposes, battle damage assessments, and CNN and others are trying to spin it to make the president look bad when this was an overwhelming success.
Now, Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson would only say that the sites were badly damaged. The world is waiting for the United Nations nuclear watchdog to issue its report on the damage done. Iran today said it would cut ties with that group since it has not condemned the U.S. bombings, but that UN team insists it needs to get into Iran and assess what happened.
It was military action until yesterday, so there is, of course, common sense and dignity that we need to respect. But at the same time, we have said we need to return.
Donald Trump's objective was to destroy Iran's work to build a nuclear weapon. But some analysts say if the sites were not completely destroyed, as this leaked report suggests, that's a problem.
If you leave a country with enrichment sites, the ability to make more centrifuges, and 900 pounds of enriched uranium, no matter how great of a job you did blowing some things up, you've still fallen short of your goal.
U.S. lawmakers were supposed to receive a classified debrief on the American strikes on Tuesday, but those were postponed at the last minute. Now the hope is for more information and the truth about the damage to come out in meetings on Thursday. Sam Sampson, CBC News, Washington.
The NATO Leaders Summit has wrapped with an historic new agreement. Member nations have agreed to a dramatic increase in their defense budgets, promising to more than double what most currently spend. It's what Donald Trump has been demanding for years, and Prime Minister Mark Carney says Canada is on board with the plan. Kate McKenna has the details from The Hague.
It could be the most consequential NATO meeting in decades, with allies agreeing to boost defense spending to levels not seen since the Second World War.
NATO leaders agreed on the Hague Defense Investment Plan. And this will fuel a quantum leap in our collective defense.
The new 5% of GDP target was a demand of U.S. President Donald Trump, long accusing allies of not pulling their weight.
NATO is going to become very strong with us. It's a great victory for everybody, I think.
Countries have a 10-year deadline to hit 5%.
The deterrence element of NATO has just gone up substantially, and it's crucial. And we would really feel it if we went in the other direction.
Canada only agreed to meet the previous benchmark of 2% this month, but now it's agreed to 5%, saying it'll hit the target through funding new equipment, infrastructure, and technology.
We must ensure that NATO remains strong, unified, and ready to confront the threats not just of today, but of tomorrow.
The 5% is broken into 2 buckets, 1.5% of GDP on infrastructure funding and 3.5% on core military needs.
Canada has already beginning working towards a target of 3.5% of GDP by 2035.
It's a big spend. The full 5% represents about $150 billion per year, more than double what's paid now. Mark Carney says the new spending is backloaded and Canadians could feel a pinch down the road.
We will have to make considerations about what less the federal government can do in certain cases. Those trade-offs happen towards the end of the decade into the next decade.
This new defense spending target will be reviewed by allies in 2029 to make sure the plan is still working. That also happens to be the year Donald Trump leaves office. Kate McKenna, CBC News, The Hague.
New housing numbers have been released by Statistics Canada showing the latest trend in rental prices. And while prices remain high in big cities compared to before the pandemic, they're heading in the right direction, for renters at least. Nisha Patel has that story.
Vancouver is the most expensive city for renters. A 2-bedroom apartment there costs more than $3,100 a month. Toronto coming in a close second. Still, compared to a year ago, rents are lower.
I currently am getting a deal and I'm never going to leave.
I think there's less demand.
In a new study, StatsCan tracked asking rents to get a better picture of the current market. In Vancouver and Calgary, the average rent for a 2-bedroom apartment dropped 8% in the first 3 months of this year, compared to the same time a year ago. Toronto and Halifax saw a 6% drop.
We are seeing rent declines through a combination of increased rental supply. New rental stock has come onto the market over the last few years, coupled with the decrease in population growth. So you're seeing increased supply, reduced demand, and that is translating into lower asking rents.
As landlords scramble to fill vacant units, some are turning to tactics like move-in bonuses. So renters may find now is a good time to shop around.
There's so many rental incentives right now, including, 1 to 2 months of free rent, or there's some housing providers giving, $500 gift cards. So those are some things to really take advantage of at the moment.
But even with the recent cool down, rents are still steep compared to pre-pandemic levels. In Montreal, rent for a 2-bedroom apartment is nearly 71% higher than in 2019.
It is a big chunk of my salary, and because it's a big chunk of salary, your mind is always there that what if the rent increased, what would I do?
It's getting ridiculous at this point because at some point people will not be available to afford it.
Over the past few years, governments have introduced measures to boost rental housing construction. Experts say with greater supply, rents could continue to fall. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
A new study suggests childhood vaccination rates have stalled or even declined globally, but those gaps depend on where you live. Some vaccine-preventable diseases like measles have already made a resurgence in Canada. And as Jennifer Yoon reports, experts worry even more could soon follow.
At the Saskatchewan Refugee Clinic, part of the job is offering childhood vaccinations to newcomers who need them.
We don't see a lot of vaccine hesitancy.
It's crucial work.
Patients that we see are from regions in the world where the vaccination coverage is a little lower.
In fact, that appears to be happening around the world, including here in Canada. According to a new study published in The Lancet, vaccination rates against diseases like diphtheria, measles, and polio have slowed or declined since 2010. Researchers estimate 15 million children missed out on key childhood vaccinations because of the pandemic, and rates haven't rebounded since.
In some places around the world, they're related to conflict, they're related to geopolitical instability, they're related to supply chain issues. In many high-income countries, they're related to vaccine misinformation and hesitancy.
Researchers warn lower uptake will lead to outbreaks of preventable diseases. Canada is already seeing a record-breaking measles outbreak. One solution, targeted vaccination campaigns for vulnerable populations.
They live together in bunkhouses, they work together in enclosed areas.
For instance, migrant farm workers who aren't already fully immunized, working in areas being hit hard by measles.
We saw a huge uptake among migrant farm workers through this voluntary program.
But researchers say the situation won't fully turn around until health authorities start convincing those who won't get vaccinated.
So new strategies are needed to encourage people to listen to trusted and reliable voices, including their healthcare providers, about vaccination.
The World Health Organization has set certain targets for 2030. Researchers say achieving those will take a huge push from governments around the world. Jennifer Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
Saskatchewan companies are betting big on helium as demand grows dramatically. But Canada relies on the U.S. to turn the gas into a liquid. Will the ongoing trade war with the U.S. change that? Alexander Silberman takes a look.
In the heart of the prairies, thousands of meters under the soil, companies are betting big on helium.
It's all new to this area and it's all exciting. We're just scratching the surface on our exploration and production at this point.
North American Helium is the largest in a field of about a dozen Canadian businesses, trying to turn a profit on a wide-ranging demand for the gas. It's needed for MRI machines at hospitals, manufacturing of semiconductors, and to launch satellites into space.
So that's the first step in our process is the membranes.
The natural gas flows from wells into largely automated processing plants. Helium travels from deep underground through these pipes and tanks to get purified. But the final step of the process, turning the gas into a liquid, happens in the United States. That's something producers are hoping to change.
We've got great resource potential.
Amid a trade war, the industry argues there's a growing case to decouple its supply chain. But it says the first step is tax credits available to other critical minerals.
For the Canadian domestic use in hospitals here, we have to ship it across the border, become liquefied, and bring it back to Canada. A Canadian liquefaction plant would eliminate that problem.
The global market now has an abundance of helium. But despite shrinking margins, a Canadian liquefying plant would be worth it, according to this expert.
I think it sends a signal that, that Canada is in the helium business for the long haul, that they, they're more than a feed gas supplier to U.S. sources.
With Qatar, the U.S., and Russia top helium producers, Canada's advantage could come down to geopolitics as a stable supply for trading partners that could also lift up the prairie economy. Alexander Silberman, CBC News, near Swift Current, Saskatchewan.
Canada's main stock index closed down more than 150 points today, weighed down by broad-based losses, while U.S. stock markets were mixed. Here's a look at the numbers as we head to break.
The weather update is brought to you by Tourisme Gaspésie. Plan your stay in Gaspésie at tourismegaspésie.com and enjoy extraordinary moments.
We showed the White Point Beach shot there earlier in the show. Nobody on the beach, but I bet there were lots of people on lots of beaches around Nova Scotia today.
Absolutely. We really are getting into summer, right? Which is nice.
Yeah, definitely. It's nice to see. Nice just to see those beach days coming. And if we could ever hit them on a weekend.
Trying.
Saturday.
That's
Saturday.
true. Last Saturday was. Yeah, you're right. The last Saturday was. So we've had one. So we're off to the races. Let's have a look at our viewer picture of the day, and a beautiful one. This one is from Port Royal, and I almost mistakenly put Port Royal Annapolis County, but this is actually Port Royal Richmond County, and a beautiful shot here from Robert.
Nice. Love it.
Yes, fantastic. Robert, thank you so much for sharing this. Ryan's picks at CBC.ca. Okay, so I didn't get a chance to show that muggy meter. Look at that.
Whoa.
Flat line.
Yeah, off the charts.
It's gone.
Flat line for the next couple days. Will creep up Sunday into Monday, and but yeah, we're done with the truly tropical stuff. So it will be, dare I say, fallish.
Oh no.
Well, yeah, especially in the morning, but we're going to warm up into the afternoon. You know, temperatures will be into the low 20s, and it's just going to have that feel of a very different feel to what we had today. That is for sure. Friday, we're going to be seeing temperatures into the low 20s as well. We'll see the clouds kind of building up through the later stages of Friday. So you can see clouding up tomorrow for the afternoon. Then that wave kind of pushes off to the south, and we've got this next push of clouds into Friday afternoon, and that is on the leading edge of that next system. And you can see that looks like those showers trying to build in, but that high off to the northeast is going to try its best to keep at least some sun in the mix early Saturday, and then hopefully again late Sunday.
All right, thanks
Fingers
for that,
crossed.
Ryan. You bet. Hawaii's Kilauea volcano is putting on a spectacular show yet again. It's shooting fountains of red-hot lava hundreds of meters into the sky.
Sporadic geysers of lava have erupted 26 times since December, usually lasting about a day.
The volcano, located within a closed area of Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, so far it's not posing a threat to residents in the surrounding area. That's some good news.
Glad to hear that. Spectacular just the same. That's it for us tonight. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
Good night.
Good night.